Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final of the AI Student Literacy Series. Something I just, as I've talked to you about, wanted to do so that everyone would have access to some PD if you can't fly to a conference or fly someone in. And today, I couldn't do this without having Matt as a guest. But we're going to end this series by talking about from fear to fluency, which translates into what Matt has here, which is how to teach AI literacy in any class. And we've been talking about that all along, but I think Matt does a really good job of a couple things. And I recently just got the book that you see there, and he does a really good job of, I think, not making it so that every kid has to be on a tool like Magic School or School AI. It's really about maybe the teacher setting up the landscape for having critical conversations about AI. Yeah. He's got some really great activities. And Matt also is in a high school classroom where he's actually teaching, actually seeing what kids do. And he's in a highly cheatable field, which is I'm telling you, when it gets past a certain time, but which is Spanish class. And that is really easy for the people who are saying that kids are only using AI to cheat. This is the place. Yeah. If you're going to cheat, I mean, obviously when Matt's talking to kids and listening to what they say, that's a little bit different, but I'm going to let Matt explain, also introduce himself. I know we all know who he is, but still. And then I want to apologize that for some reason I did this on a Monday night at 8 o'clock. I realize that most people are going to watch this another time. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking May 4th was a Tuesday, so I apologize. But anyway, Matt, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then let's talk about some of the great nuggets of information you give us in this new book.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt Miller, you might know me from Ditch That Textbook, which has been my blog and email newsletter, my sort of like teacher brand for the last almost 15 years or so. Written a whole bunch of books, including this one right here, AI Literacy in Any Class. That's the newest one. I'm also, like Holly said, a high school Spanish teacher. I was a full-time consultant, doing presentations at schools and writing and speaking and everything for about 8 years full-time. And then I went back in the classroom to teach. And right now I'm teaching one class in person, face-to-face every single day. So I'm with kids every day. And it's been really interesting to see how even little AI literacy lessons are creeping into my own class. So I want to be able to tell you all about that. And then also some activities that you can use, I think, to help boost your students' AI literacy while also teaching your content in your curriculum. I know a lot of times folks look at AI literacy, especially teachers, and they're like, but I'm a science teacher, but I'm a social studies teacher, but I teach fourth grade, but I teach kindergarten. And I would say with all of those, there are ways that, including kindergarten, and I can actually touch on that later, there are a couple of little shifts that I think the primary grades can even do that really fit with this. But, with all of these, it's like there are these ways where you can, I think, level up the teaching that you do of your, curriculum and your content, but also instill some of those little AI literacy lessons that over time build up and are so impactful. So if you're following along and you want a copy of my slides, I'm one of those people that puts way too many slides in the slide deck and then never gets to all of them. So you're probably going to have a whole bunch of slides that I don't get to, but ditch.link/Holly is where you go to get those slides. So
I'm super glad.
So anyway, Holly, there's the setup right there, the introduction. Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted. I'm super glad to hear that you put too many slides and don't get to them. Because I'm guilty. Anyway, keep going. I won't interrupt you.
Okay, great. So we could kind of start where Holly was mentioning that I went back to the classroom to teach. I already kind of gave you the heads up on all of that, but I really did. Holly, can you see that I've got my Meta smart glasses on in that picture? Can you tell? I don't know if it's like big enough, but anyway, in my high school Spanish classroom, that's where I started to see some examples of how little AI literacy moments just organically started showing up in my class. So here was really my aha moment with it. I'm teaching high school Spanish, and this class, it happened to be a Spanish 1 class. And I was using AI image generators to make pictures that my students could describe in Spanish. So I'd put these pictures up. It would be, rich in all of the vocabulary, all the nouns and verbs and adjectives and everything that we were studying. And I just get to ask my students a million questions. But of course, it was early AI image generator, and you knew that there was going to be hallucinations. There was going to be, little odd things in it. So I put this one picture up there. I think it's the next one. It was this. A picture of a pig playing basketball against a sheep. We were studying animal vocabulary and sports vocabulary at the same time for whatever reason. I can't remember how I set it up that way. And of course, if you've got both of those lists, what are you going to make pictures of? Animals playing sports. Of course. I mean, it's obvious, right? So my students saw this and they just sort of like chuckled at first. And I stopped and I was like, let's just have some fun with this. I wasn't even thinking about AI. And I just asked them this simple question. I said, where's the AI weirdness? I said, you see it, I see it. I even asked them, I said, could you tell that this was an AI generated image? And they were like, yeah. Like, okay, well, what's the AI weirdness? And they started pointing it out and they were like, the lines are weird. The jerseys are weird. They're both wearing the same number. You can't do that. The words on the jerseys are nonsense. Look at the scoreboard. The audience is a bunch of stuffed animals. Like, it's just all of this weird stuff. And so that was my opportunity to say, by the way, it's interesting to know that, if you didn't know already, AI creates what they call artifacts. And it's like little mistakes, little oddities. And that's one way that you can tell whether something is authentic or if it's artificial. And afterwards, that line kind of stuck with me. And I was like, wow, I just talked to them about AI, but we were still learning Spanish. It wasn't like I had to stop and teach them a unit about artificial intelligence. It's not like I had to plan it ahead of time. It just kind of came up, And so like it says here, it generated lots of conversations. Other conversations that we started to learn just through the natural flow of class is that they saw that an adult was using AI in their work in a way that supported learning. If all they're learning is just stuff that they see on TikTok and little things that they whisper with their friends, then this is starting to level that playing field a little bit. I modeled identifying my images as AI generated for transparency. They got to practice discerning what was human created and AI created. And it even started to break down the stigma that AI equals cheating. In this case, it was actually supporting their learning. And then sometimes we even talked about the prompts that I used to make the images. And all of this just came from me making images so that my students could describe it. And it was interesting that, like I said, my aha moment was that I was teaching AI without teaching AI. You know what I mean? I was like, I was teaching Spanish, but I was also teaching them about AI, and it just sort of like naturally came up. And so that's one of the things that I think is interesting, is that when we talk about AI literacy, it really is about wanting students to be prepared for the world ahead. AI literacy doesn't mean use chatbots all the time. You might use chatbots to help students learn AI literacy, but it's not the only way. AI literacy doesn't mean learn how to use ChatGPT to do your homework. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It means understanding how you handle your business with AI so that you can be smart and responsible and safe with it. And that's one of the big misconceptions that I think that comes with all of this. I got more examples, but I wanted to stop, Holly, and see if you had any reflections or any comments or anything, or if no, I'll just keep going.
No, Matt, actually, something interesting that you and I have not talked about on our podcast is recently, I think that, and I'm in a really weird TikTok algorithm, I will admit it, but like recently, I think that when people hear us talking about AI literacy, they think that we're talking about teaching kids to prompt, teaching kids to do things and understand large language models. And we are, but we're doing it in a way that puts the lesson and pedagogy first. And I've kind of, as I'm rewriting or doing whatever I'm doing with this next book, I'm thinking about changing it to like instead of like in your example, AI literacy in every class, I'm thinking about saying AI thinking, or
Oh yeah.
bringing thinking into it, because people are hearing something different. And everything that you're talking about is thinking, and everything you're going to talk about is really uplifting thinking. And if I think
Yeah.
if we could change that a little bit, it would be great.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. I was just listening to some podcasts that were talking about some of the historical roots of artificial intelligence. And one of the early names for it was called thinking machines.
Huh.
And it even focused on the
Huh.
thinking too. And I think you're exactly right. I keep pointing back to the thinking. So yeah, I think I like that. That makes sense. So
Thinking. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah. When we're talking about AI literacy, I think it's good to define it. And my definition is a lot more basic than some, but I think that it's got layers. So I always talk about AI literacy as the skills and understandings that we need to survive and thrive in a world full of AI. And all of those things mean something to me. Skills and understandings, like what can we do and what do we need to know? Because those are both things that we need. And then it's to survive and to thrive. We're talking about how do we protect ourselves? How do we keep ourselves safe? That's the survive side. But then there's also a thrive side to it. And some people get kind of lopsided on this. Some of them want to talk about all of the threats,
Yeah.
but they don't talk about the benefits. And some people are all benefits and they don't talk about the threats. But there is a thrive side to this where if you use it responsibly and in the right way, it can support you in your very human goals, and also to free you up to be more human in more arenas of your life. So, and what I think my book really talks about, and a lot of the things I've been talking about recently, is that it can actually strengthen our teaching. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. This whole concept of embedded AI literacy. Like we're not teaching AI literacy explicitly; it's embedded in the instruction that we're already doing. So from my book, AI Literacy in Any Class, I've got 4 things queued up here. I don't know if we'll make it through all of them, but I've got 4 things queued up. And if you don't, if we don't get through all of them, of course, they're all in the slides and you can go check it out. Number 1 is to squeeze AI literacy into conversation. And I was actually doing this earlier. I showed you an example of it with the pig and the sheep playing basketball. I used these words. I said, by the way, did you know? And that's what I like to call, let me skip real quick to it. Yeah, this one. What I like to call, by the way lessons. Holly's going to look it up. These are all sort of in chapter order, by the way, if you want to follow along in your book. So here's what a by the way lesson is. It's just like this little sort of like truth, or this little bit of wisdom, this little nugget of wisdom that you have in your back pocket ready to go. And whenever it comes up in conversation, you just pull it out and you use it. The slide before that I had that I'll show you real quick. A lot of us already have these in our day-to-day instruction. I have one about false cognates in Spanish. False cognates are the words in Spanish that look like English words, but they don't actually mean what the English word means. So for example, the word libreria looks like library, but it actually means bookstore. And they're these little like tricky things in Spanish. And so I have a by the way lesson. I say, by the way, did you know that in Spanish, there are certain words that look like English words, but they actually don't mean the same thing. They're called false cognates, and you got to be careful. Those 2 lines, but it's in my back pocket ready to go. And if it comes up in conversation, I can just throw it in there. And I found that if you come up with, and you don't have to be like an AI guru to get these, but just things that you notice and things that you learn about AI, just be prepared to lay a little 1 or 2 liner on them. So you can use this simple framework. Start with a statement like, by the way, did you know? That's my favorite one. You give 1 or 2 short facts about AI that relate to the topic at hand. By the way, did you know that sometimes AI images have little weird things that are called artifacts? Connect it to the new information or whatever you're discussing. So whenever you're seeing pictures like we are today, that's one way for you to be able to point it out. And if you just pull together these little by the way lessons, and here are a couple of examples. By the way, did you know AI sometimes produces incorrect information? It's called hallucinations. So whenever you get something AI generated, always be ready to look it over. By the way, did you know that using AI responsibly can actually benefit you in the real world? If it supports your thinking and helps you to do your work, if you can maintain that right balance, it can be helpful. By the way, did you know overusing AI in the real world has real consequences? So any of that stuff, that's one of my like quick, easy ones. Whenever I'm teaching folks about AI literacy, it seems like any teacher in any grade level or content area can do these kinds of things. And actually, since I mentioned it earlier, I have a section at the back of the book that's dedicated to primary teachers. Yeah, it's in the very, very back. It's for teachers that teach, like K-2. I've never taught K-2, but I think I kept thinking about the audiences that would look at AI literacy and go, this isn't for me. This isn't for my kids. And in that chapter, it's not exactly by the way lessons, but it's like a couple of little truths that you can start to embed into the things that you talk about with the littles. So for example, like whenever you have AI generate an image and you put it up on the screen, you just remember to mention the computer made this. Just by simply saying the computer made this is a way to delineate the difference between humans make some things and the computer makes some things. And it starts to help them to see the difference between the two. Other ones, this is not my favorite example, but it's the only one that comes to mind right now is, if a kid gives another kid a good compliment in class and you call it out and you want to say something like this, you say, that was a really nice compliment. Now, if you looked up a compliment like that on the computer and you gave it to somebody, would it mean as much as if you came up with it yourself? And that one's not the best example, but you see where I'm getting at with that, right? Like it's starting to show that human generated things that you do from the heart, from your brain, hit different than the things that are created by the computer. And just another one that I talk about in that chapter too with the littles is not anthropomorphizing AI. Don't give it a name, don't give it emotions, don't talk about it like it's a person. That's another one of those sort of like foundational things about technology that students can start to learn even when they're learning, right? Or even when they're little. And Jenny just mentioned in a comment right there, thank you for including K2. We believe it's so important to start with them. And I'm glad that you do, because if the foundation starts to get laid with the littles, then when you get up into some of the later grades, then it's not like you have to start from scratch, which I think is huge.
I have second graders who are now fifth graders who are like better at AI than adults. So, and I'm super proud of that because we had the conversations. They didn't use AI. They weren't in AI at the beginning, but they had the conversations that make them super savvy right now.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for doing that. That's great. So, okay. You want me to keep moving?
Yep.
Because we're going to do the Be the Bot next.
Okay.
And I know that's one of your favorites.
It is.
Okay. So, the next one is to amplify what you already teach. And it's funny, Holly, at the top of the show, you said, Matt's a high school teacher. And then what did I do? I turned it around to primary grades. Like, what am I doing here? I got brought in to talk as a high school teacher and I'm talking about primary grades, but
pedagogy is pedagogy.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So amplify what you already teach. This is touching on that idea that you can teach your content. You can teach what it is that you teach, but you can also look at it through an AI lens and learn a little something about AI. And so one of my favorite examples of that, one of my favorite activities is this activity I like to call Be the Bot. If you would like a little simple Google Slides template to facilitate this with your students, you can go to that link right there, ditch.link/be the bot. And so here's the gist of the Be the Bot exercise. Let's pretend that I'm the teacher and you all are the students, and we've been learning something for a few days now. So we've got sort of like a base foundational understanding of it. And I say, okay, I'm about to ask AI, I'm about to ask ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever it is that we're going to use. I'm about to ask it this question about what we've been learning. So you might ask something like, what are the 3 most pivotal inventions in history? In the book Wonder, who is the most courageous character? It's some sort of question where the AI is going to have to make a judgment call. And so I say, I'm going to ask the AI that question. But before I do, I want you to answer it. tell me what you think, or you might even ask the question differently and say, tell me how you think AI is going to respond. Those are actually two different questions. You might have them do either or maybe even both. And so you give them a little bit of time, and then what are they doing? They're brainstorming, they're retrieving. It's retrieval practice. So they're recalling facts, which is going to strengthen their long-term memory. They're discussing, they're justifying, they're forming judgments, they're backing up their judgments. All of this stuff is climbing up web depth of knowledge, right? It's like slowly climbing the DOK levels. And then once they've got it, once they've got an idea of what their answer is or what they think AI is going to say, then you run the prompt. And as the prompt is flowing onto the screen, it's like up on the big screen in the front of class. And as the prompt is flowing on the screen, they're watching it and they're immediately going, ha, see, I got the first three. I knew it. Or they might go, I can't believe that my number one didn't even make their list. That doesn't make any sense. Or they might go, oh, number 4 was a good one. I can't believe we didn't think about that.
Yeah.
They're like they're comparing and contrasting. It starts to feel like a game. Whenever I facilitate this in workshops, there's always a buzz in the room whenever the prompt gets thrown up there. And see, the nice thing about that is that once you get done with that and AI puts all of that stuff up there, you can start asking them, what do you think about its judgment? Is it good? How did it format it? Did it rank them? Did it decide to do that on its own? If it did rank them, what do you think about the rankings? Are there any of them that are different on yours that you would fight for? Are there any of them on yours that you want to change now? And then the other question is, let's analyze the AI response. First of all, did it get anything wrong? Did it say anything that was a little bit unfair or a little bit off? Was there any missing context? Was there any bias? Did it like lean away from certain things? Like, for example, whenever I facilitate this with teachers and workshops, I almost always use the question, I'm a tourist in, like San Francisco, California, whatever city I'm in, what are the top places that I should see as a tourist there if I've got 2 days to spend? And so everybody has answers to that question. So we're kind of like pretending like the content that we're studying that day is we're learning about that city, And so I have all the participants make their list and then I put all this stuff up there. And every once in a while, AI hallucinates. Even in my own state capital, when I did one in Indianapolis, there was a time where it suggested that we go have lunch in City Market. And someone's like, City Market hasn't existed for several years now. Huh. So whenever they see that stuff, that's the other interesting thing about this activity is sometimes you put that stuff up there and it makes mistakes or it doesn't do a very good job. And the teachers are like, no, see, that's why I can't use AI. And I'm going, no, see, that's why you must use AI, is because you want students to be able to see that it is indeed fallible and that you really do need to critique it, because you know how they are. It's like, just look it up on AI and AI must know the answer and it's always right and it's always neutral. And it's not, So it's a great way to be able to teach them that kind of stuff. And then we already covered some of this stuff. These are some of the little lessons they learn about AI: the compare, contrast, analyze the assumptions that AI had to make in the background, brainstorm different things you could have done to the prompt. I didn't even talk about that. I forgot that part. Teachers love to bring that up. They're like, yeah, but if you're in San Francisco and you've got family, you would never want to do those things. You would want to add that to your prompt. And I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. Tell me more. Yeah. What if you wanted to go on a budget? First of all, I don't think you can do San Francisco on a budget, if I remember correctly. But, and it's interesting. I always do that, that prompt about I'm a tourist in your city. I always make it super vague and general on purpose, because I want them to spot it and I want them to try to improve on the prompt for me. It's this little instructional decision that I make as a workshop facilitator. I give them a bad prompt on purpose because I want them to catch it and I want them to be able to improve on it. And if they don't catch it, then I always just throw it to them. I'm like, that was a really vague prompt. How could we do that better? And I always love to see what they come up with, And of course, one of the highlights of all of this is that the human thinking comes first. And that is one of my huge principles. Whenever I talk about AI, I mean, that you talk about AI literacy for students, like, that general concept, if you can hammer that home little by little over time, always do your human thinking first. I've got, yes.
So can I say in your book, you even kind of up this activity a little bit by having the kids get together in a group and
Yep.
like come up with things they think is going to be on there, not just individually. So you're adding some of that. That's really good too. And the
Mhm.
fact that the kids aren't in AI, the teacher's driving it and the teacher knows the content. So there's
Yeah.
nothing to be afraid of here. And those two are just like chef's kiss for me.
Yes. Yeah. And this is always a really good one, especially for teachers that are sort of new to AI and they're just getting into it. And they're like, I don't want to turn my kids over to the bots and I don't want to
Yeah.
write prompts for, AI chatbots for students and all that stuff. And I'm like, hey, with this, you're driving the whole thing from the front of the room and students can still learn AI literacy and they don't even have to lay fingers on a keyboard to do this kind of activity. It's just a nice contrast, I feel like, for some of the cool stuff that I see you do with chatbots, even with littles and everything. That's fantastic. And it is another way to teach AI literacy. And I like that this just shows that there are lots of different ways to be able to get at AI literacy. There's lots of different, outlets for that, I think.
We
So
need both.
yes,
I mean,
totally
we
agree.
actually need this first.
Yeah, maybe this is a good stepping stone into the other stuff, right? So real quick, I know sometimes people like to see examples in other classes. I talked about the book Wonder earlier. Who's the most courageous character in the book Wonder? In math, what are the most useful types of math in everyday life? What are the 5 environmental problems most urgent to solve? Science. Health. What's the most important habit for a healthy lifestyle? All of those require a judgment call. And all we're doing is we're just analyzing and critiquing the judgment calls that AI makes. Now, if you want to create your own Be the Bot questions, these are some of my favorite sentence stems to start from, because all of these questions require AI to make some sort of judgment call. So with any of these, just apply any of this stuff to the content that you're already learning. And of course, the students still have to brainstorm and anticipate and all of that content that you're already learning. But then afterwards, we can have little AI literacy conversations. So anyway, that's the gist of the Be the Bot activity, which is one that I really believe you can roll out in just about any grade level and content area.
Staff meeting.
Yes,
Someone
absolutely.
mentioned.
Staff meeting.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. I just got Rachel Lemansky's attention with the sentence starters. I was very excited about that. So, Holly, do you want me to do one more since I know we're coming up on time a little bit anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I told you, we've been loosey goosey with the time.
Like
I've tried my
30
hardest.
minutes, but yeah.
But
Okay. I did want to throw this out real quick. If any of you all that are watching are interested in getting my AI teacher toolkit, this is like a 20 plus Holly scanning the QR code.
I am. You
It's
think
like
I would have all this stuff right after?
yeah,
Anyway, go ahead.
exactly. It's
I
this
felt
like 20 plus page PDF with a bunch of AI tools. It's got prompts for teachers. It's got, one of the things I love about it is it has a printable page that you can print off and send home to parents and guardians, showing how they can use AI to support their kids in their homework and their learning at home. So there's just a whole bunch of good stuff in this teacher toolkit. So if you want to check it out, scan that QR code, or you can go to ditch.link/toolkit. And if you know somebody else that might like to have it, just pass it along, pass that link along. So happy to have you do that. Okay, let's talk about, I'm going to take a peek here at my slides and see where this is the one that I want to do. So this last one is going to be about analyze and critique. This is really, if there is a muscle that we can build in students that will support them in their AI literacy in the future, it is what I call in the book the ABC rule. Salespeople use the ABC rule of always be closing. You're always trying to close the sale. For me, the ABC rule is always be critiquing. ABC, always be critiquing. So with AI, you want to critique everything. And with teachers, critique obviously comes right from the same root as critical thinking. Critical thinking happens whenever you critique. And the nice thing about AI is it'll throw a bunch of stuff at you and you can't hurt its feelings if you critique it, if you don't like it, So when it comes to critiquing everything, I would suggest you can go from the teeny tiniest little piece, like the response that it gives you, all the way out to the biggest implications. What are the implications in the future on society and the cultural implications of AI, the social implications of AI? Like with students, whatever seems to fit, you can scale down a little bit more. What about the AI model itself? What about, ChatGPT versus Gemini versus Claude versus school AI spaces versus, any of those places that students might run up against it. So when it comes to critique, let me give you a practical example that comes right out of the classroom. I actually ran this one by an English teacher today in another webinar, and she really liked this one. So this is a poem in Emily Dickinson style about Takis. Holly, have you ever eaten Takis before?
I haven't. How is this possible?
I don't know, but if you're live in the chat, why don't you weigh in on how you feel about Takis? Takis are these it's kind of like this trashy snack food that's spicy, and it's got all sorts of this very colorful dust. It's got all sorts of food coloring in it, I'm sure. And they are hot and spicy, and they get all over your hands like Cheetos do, and the kids absolutely love them. Jenny says teenagers love them, and she's exactly right. Rachel says not a fan, but my teen loves them though. Yeah. So I'm like, yeah.
Junk food.
So I'm like, hey, if we're studying Emily Dickinson anyway, what if we have AI generate us a poem in Emily Dickinson style, but about something else? And in this case, we picked Takis because it's something that students can relate to. And so we start to look at it, and now we get to do all of our critiquing skills, right? And we look at it and we just ask simple questions. Does this look like an Emily Dickinson poem? How do you know? What are some examples? What are some ways that it misses the mark? Well, we can even do human judgment. Is this any good? Do you like it? Is this any better or any worse than the Emily Dickinson stuff? And all the English teachers are like, please say no, please say no, please say no. But it's like part of appreciating, poetry and literature and everything is human taste. You like what you like, and you should be able to develop a taste. That's something that's very human, so being able to do that. If you were going to change anything about this, what would you change? There's just so many of these little questions. And then of course, afterwards we can ask, how do you think AI knew how to write a poem in Emily Dickinson style about Takis in the first place? How could you tell? And they might look at it and go, look at all of those M dashes.
Yeah.
But the reality is that Dickinson wrote with dashes. So, she was using M dashes before M dashes were cool. So, anyway, to sort of put a bow on that, it's really about the questions, isn't it? AI literacy is all about asking better questions.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. And thinking, yes, exactly. I love all of the posts I've seen from you all over social media about, it really is about thinking. And if you want some help asking better questions, this is the bullseye graphic that I put in the book, in my book, AI Literacy in Any Class. It's the idea of critiquing AI from big to small or from small to big. And so I tried to come up with 4 examples. So the top one is one example, the left one is one example, the right one's one example, and the bottom one is one. And the inside of the graphic are little things, like small zoomed in things, but then the outer ones are the big picture ones. So for example, let's do the one up at the top. This is about the written word. If AI generates text, we can analyze and critique word choice. Do you see that one on the inside of the bullet of the bullseye? Yeah, we can analyze and critique word choice. Why did it pick that word? We could analyze sentence structure and sentence writing. How did it end up writing it that way, and could it be done better? You can pull it back to the paragraph length, and then also you can look at it overall as a complete work. I have found that I usually start somewhere in the middle, and I don't zoom in enough and I don't zoom out enough. So I might want to look at the paragraph structure and the sentence structure, but I might not analyze word choice. And I also might not pull it back to analyze the impact of the entire work as a whole. So this is just my little visual reminder to go smaller and to go bigger. If you're going to critique AI, there's always more. There's always another bite at the apple if we look at it in this way, I think.
Interesting. I didn't get to that part, Matt, so I was glad to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll sort of start to wrap this up a little bit, that I feel like when we show students responsible use of AI, when we show them ways that it can actually support student thinking, that it can actually help them to grow and develop, when we can use it to push their thinking a little bit, it starts to build a culture. There's so much talk out there about cheating, right? About cheating and, oh, there are all of these things that I don't want students to do. And then we don't want to talk about AI. But the more that we show some examples of how it can actually help and support, it starts to I always like to think of it like a ship in the harbor. What happens when the tide comes into the harbor? All ships rise, right? And I feel like the more positive, the more responsible use that we put out there, way to get that L into the other Holly. No, but the more responsible use that we put out there, it counterbalances some of the negative stuff. Because if we as teachers aren't willing to talk to students about responsible ways to do this, there is nothing to balance out the negative stuff. Because they're going to keep talking about it with their friends, and they're going to keep hearing about it on TikTok and all the other places that they talk about it. But if they never hear the other side of it, then they can't even think about it. And I'll have some teachers that'll go oh, talking about the responsible use, that's not going to get everybody. There's still going to be kids that are going to abuse it. And I go, yep, you're right. But we've never had 100% compliance on cheating anyway. And this will start to get some people. This will start to get through to some students. But if we don't touch on it, if we don't even try, if we're so afraid of making mistakes, or if we have all of this imposter syndrome that I'm not an AI guru and I haven't had any formal training and everything, if we're not willing to get into the arena and participate, we can't do anything. So I think if we want to start to make a positive difference, this is definitely one step that we can take, is to start to highlight the responsible use and show them the possibilities and the potential. It won't get rid of all of the abuse, but it'll start to counterbalance some of it, I think.
And I'm trying to get your link right now to your book, Matt. So if you see me looking away, I'm
Okay.
just
I'll put a little short link in there too.
Okay.
You can go to ditch.link/ALAC book. So that little short link should do it. Oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't like whenever I post links.
I'll do it. Does it do it better? It doesn't make it though. Let me go grab that Amazon link just to make it.
Or we could always just say, go search AI literacy in any class, Matt Miller, on Amazon if you want to get the book. Let me, so I've still got some other slides up here that we won't get to today, but you can definitely look at in the slide deck. One is using AI Lens to discuss your content. That's talking about how do you talk about the impact of AI in different fields, in literature, in government, in science. And so I've got some examples of it. Here's one about biomes. What's the impact of massive data centers? What's the impact of the electricity and the water? If the water's returned to the source at a higher temperature, what does it do to the environment? All of those are AI literacy conversations, but they also let you talk about biomes. So I've got a whole bunch of examples of that in there. And then I also thought I would bring this up too. I did use AI to write my book. I used AI to write a book about AI, and there's actually a whole section in the back of the book about that. Because I didn't use AI to come up with ideas. I followed my own principle of human thinking before AI. But what I did do is I did a whole bunch of brain dumps. My favorite thing to do is in my headphones, I will dictate to ChatGPT, or I will dictate to Claude. And so I'll just brain dump all of my ideas and I'll share it with it. And then it'll repeat back what it heard me say, and it'll ask me follow-up questions. So it becomes kind of like my reflection partner, my thought partner, but it's also collecting all of those ideas. And so once I had dumped out all of my ideas that I wanted to include, I started asking it questions like, ask me questions on things that I haven't touched on in this book that would be a good fit. And so that was helpful, So it really was my thinking partner more than my idea generation machine, because I already had a lot of ideas. I shouldn't be writing a book if I don't already have a ton of ideas in my heart and in my head that I want to say about it. There's lots of people that do write books. that would rather put those ideas into their heart and their head through AI. But I think that you got to have some of that stuff yourself as a human first. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, and that I might throw that out there too. And I want to normalize it as well, like you should be able to use these tools in the appropriate ways, and you should be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And I want to say, Matt, with the AI infused classroom, which I wrote in 2023, I did the same thing. I put the words on Google Docs first, and then I would run it through like, what am I missing here? What would a teacher still need to know? All of the things. And now as I'm starting to write, and I was just going to update AI infused classroom. I don't know if it's going to turn into a new book or an update, but it's really interesting, the difference in how I'm using AI, because I'm using Claude Skills, and Claude Skills understands some things about me. And it's just not throwing it into the actual text, but throwing stuff out at me like, but this is not what you think, or this is like, and I'm like, whoa. So it's interesting that the difference that 3 years have made.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just recording a video today. It happened to be about AI detectors, like AI checkers and everything. And one of the points I was making, among other things, was that there's research out there about AI detectors and AI checkers, but some of it was published in 2023. And some of that research was done on like GPT 3.5. Yeah. And we have come leaps and bounds since then. And also, so have the AI detectors. They've come leaps and bounds since then too. It doesn't mean that they're good. It doesn't mean that they're accurate, but they have changed and evolved. And so that's one thing that we've got to be aware of, just like you said, that we have come a long way. And today's AI is way different than the AI of 2 years ago, which is crazy to say, but it's true.
Super interesting. It takes me to a video I just watched where it was Gavin Newsom talking to someone who was interviewing him and saying, well, California, whatever. And Gavin Newsom was like, we need to change these talking points. This is old data. Like, and he just kept repeating this thing. Like, we need to change the talking points. And I think maybe we need to say that in AI literacy, like we need to change the talking points.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah. I know that, like, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent about AI detectors or anything, but I know it's something that teachers talk about a lot. And every once in a while, I'll be honest, I go on to AI detectors and I try to like test them out. I don't want to just like, it's like you said, we need to make sure that our talking points are still relevant and accurate. I still don't think that it's great technology, and I still think it's based on guesswork. And I still think that it could create more harm than good. But if they start to get better at things, it might change my thinking. They haven't changed my thinking yet, but I want to be open-minded about everything. I don't want to get so set in my ways that all of a sudden this constantly evolving technology takes a sharp right turn and I'm not expecting it. And 2 years later, I'm still saying the same stuff. And other folks are watching in the crowd and they're like, has he actually done this in the last 2 years? Like, I don't want to be that guy. So I'm open to everything. I don't know about you, but that's kind of how I try to roll as best as I can anyway. So, do you want to hear last couple slides? I can do these super fast. Okay. Look at that slide, Holly. That's been in my presentation for a little while now. See how much we think alike? AI literacy is really about thinking, and in a world.
Would it be because we do a podcast together? I'm just kidding.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. I feel like I share a brain with you sometimes. But in a world full of answers, I think we need a couple of things. We need good questions. In a world full of answers, don't we need good questions? And I think we also need good evaluation. If there's all sorts of answers available, we need to evaluate what's worth it to us. And this is my sort of like take-home point that sort of summarizes the entire book. AI literacy can support what we actually teach. It doesn't have to be something to add onto the plate. It can actually be something that amplifies what we already do, and also, in some cases, saves us some time. The Be the Bot activity, that's like a no prep activity, and it gets students thinking, so like you might even be able to save yourself a little bit of time. So anyway, there's the thank you slide with a whole bunch of links to a variety of different things, including that AI toolkit, and then a couple of other things that could be helpful. So there you go.
Upcoming book. It's not upcoming.
Oh, you're right. Yes, that's right. It is here. That's right. So.
Okay. Well, Matt, I want to thank you. this was super helpful for me. I really have enjoyed your book. In fact, I'm recommending a whole school buys it. So,
Thank you.
because I think it's a really non-threatening way for
Yeah.
a teacher to start using this without being like, but I don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
we can all ask a question about who's the most influential or character in Wonder,
Yeah.
and it takes nothing.
Yeah.
So, thank you for this, and it's been really brilliant. And thank you for spending 8 p.m. on the East Coast with us. Some of us are only at the 5, almost 6 p.m. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. I really appreciate it. And my apologies to everyone else that this was on a Monday. But anyway, obviously you can say I don't do well with Mondays, according to my links. But thanks. Thank you, Matt, for everything you've done today or tonight.
Yes. Absolutely. Thanks. It was great to be on here. It was great to see all of you. And thanks so much for being a part of the live stream.
Bye now.